welcome to the first of many Alumni Spotlight interviews. I'm Dominique Bursey, the chair of communications for the DC chapter of the FAMU National Alumni Association. And I am so excited to be conducting this interview today. We have an initiative called the Alumni Spotlight, where we choose FAMU rattlers in the DMV area to showcase that are making an impact on the chapter, the region, the university, and the community. So we want to continue to showcase that we are striking from the top, especially here at the nation's capital. So today we have one of my favorite people in the world that we get to interview. I'm so excited to talk to Keneshia and Nina, who seems to be kind of in and kind of out. Hi, Keneshia.
Hi.
Thank you so much for joining us today with your puppy. Can we, what is her name?
Her
Nina,
name is Nina.
Nina Simone?
Nina Simone Hogan.
Oh, hi, Nina Simone Hogan. Well, we are so happy to have you today. And like I mentioned, this is an initiative that we started. And this year, I really wanted to kind of take advantage of the fact that we are all at home and virtual and really have kind of like a fireside chat and get to know you a little more as we kind of showcase you and highlight you as our feature for this month. So thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me and for accommodating Nina. She does what she wants to do,
Yeah,
as she
you
is still
know,
a very little puppy.
how many months is she?
She's 5 months.
5 months. Okay. Well, I, as a former dog mom, know how serious it is to have puppies. So I'm sending you love and light and luck because sometimes they can be a handful.
Thank
So
you.
you're welcome. Before we get into the nitty and gritty of DC and Rattler stuff and what you're doing up here, I kind of want to take a moment to talk about the fact that we are in the middle of civil unrest, a little bit of political. I'm going to say we're just on pause right now, kind of waiting for things to
Right.
kind of be told to us. We're also in the middle of COVID-19 and quarantine. So, with all of those many things going on, I kind of just want to ask you, have you developed any new hobbies or any new skills during this
Well,
time?
you're looking at hobby number one that that I have developed during the quarantine. In terms of new skills, I won't say that I have any new skills so much as I probably have new perspectives. And so I'm certainly of the it's time to be still and thoughtful kind of contingent of folks coming out of this. I want to make sure that I'm being more present and more kind of soaking up each moment and recognizing that, you only get one life. And I think that those were things that I was moving so quickly before that I didn't kind of take the time to think about them.
Yeah, I would definitely say my level of compassion has increased during this time, just in general, because so many things are going on that when you encounter someone, you just never know what they may have been just coming out
Exactly.
of or still kind of going through. So
Yeah, I
it's
think that's right.
excellent way to kind of live the excellence with caring motto of
Yeah,
you, right? Like understanding that we still are required to be excellent, but we do have to kind of involve like wrap it in caring and wrap it in the compassion that everyone needs right now.
yeah.
um so now that you're kind of having new perspectives and thinking about things differently and seeing things differently, how are you kind of using that with work as it pertains to
Mm.
work? Because you're a professor and a political analyst and a bunch of other amazing things. So, can you clarify who and what you are and how you've been looking at it with a new perspective?
Yeah, I'm an associate professor of political science at Howard University. And that requires me to do research and it requires me to do teaching. I also do some political analysis for media networks, including television and print. I think that I have been more, as a result of getting tenure this summer and a result of the pandemic, selfish about my time. And so I when I was a younger professor, did not turn things down and did not say no. But I am very proficient in the word no these days. And so I think the kind of cheap thing I'm doing is trying to understand all the other parts of life that should be filled in and not assign all of my hours and all of my days to work stuff. I think the thing you mentioned about compassion is really important too. As a professor, you kind of have a strict notion of what you want your students to do, but this semester they are getting compassionate Dr. Grant on maximum percentage, right? You need a deadline extended, no problem. You don't feel good today, cool. I am not one of these professors who is requiring a great deal from students at this time because it's just impossible to know what they might be going through or how this might be affecting them internally. And I don't want to be the person who they remember later in their life as having held them back from a degree over, turning in something a day late or some other thing that seems very trivial to me at this moment.
Dr. Grant, wow, I am so jealous of your students because I have to admit, I remember being an undergrad and having you as an advisor for student government. That excellence with caring was very rigid.
Yes, it was. Yes, they are getting a much more chilled out version than
But I
y'all
will
got.
say it made me a better woman, and it really kind of showed me just how real the world could be. So I think it's actually beautiful that now, what, 13 years, yeah, 13 years later, we're kind of able to look at things with not only more experience, but also more balance, right? And
Yes,
not to say that we
yes,
weren't balanced back then, because I mean, we had so much fun. We had to have that level of kind of structure. But especially as it pertains to work, and
yes.
especially as women, Black women, working in the nation's capital, which is one of the cities with like the highest rate of depression, and anxiety, and even
Mm-hmm.
suicide. We just have to be
Mm-hmm.
realistic that we are in a high paced environment, especially with the climate that we're in, with election season. There's just a lot going on. So to hear you kind of talk about having that balance and also extending that compassion to people you work with and for, is
Yes.
amazing. I think it's also a good note to kind of transition into the conversation of living in DC. So how long have you been in the DC area?
I think I have been here for 8 years.
Yeah.
I feel like it's been 8 years, and I say I think and I feel because it feels like I got here yesterday. I know I did not get here yesterday. I can do things like drive around without the GPS and tell you about like feel about I don't know, clap out the what do we call these things?
The wards?
Yes, the wards and the street names and tell you the logic of the street names.
Right.
Um and so yeah, all those things let me know it's been a minute, but it feels like it was yesterday.
So you've been here about 8 years. I was reading an article somewhere that said that was like defining people in DC and what you call them based on how long they've been here. And the word transplants was like if you've been here for 1 to 4 years, or
Really?
1 to 5 years or something. And then the word Washingtonian can be applied to a transplant that has been here more than 5 years. And then, of course, a native is somebody who is born in the DMV. So I think, or in the DC area, in DC, excuse me. So
Yeah.
I think you can check off the Washingtonian box because I do. I've been here.
I don't I feel so strange about that though. Like I haven't lived in Florida. At this point I think I'm approaching having lived in Florida less than I have lived anywhere else. But those were my formative years. And so I don't know that I would ever call myself a Washingtonian. Like people I travel and people say, "Hey, where are you from?" And I'm like, "Lauderhill." And they're like, "Oh, you came here from Florida?" And I'm like, "No, I'm from Lauderhill, but I'm doing this whole thing." And so I do have a little bit of like mental disconnect between the fact that I am actually a Washingtonian by all measures, right? Like even
Tax
when I go
measures,
home.
your bill,
Yeah.
all of that. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's why
But
I claim
still Florida is in my heart. Yeah.
I actually have a similar moment because I think Floridians, especially for Floridians in DC, once you tell people you're from Florida, it's like they almost relax a little bit, but then they also kind of take a step back and they're like, okay, what part of Florida? How do
Right.
you how do you feel about these things? And I'm like, it's complicated,
Yeah.
but I still represent it all the way. So I understand that. But what is your favorite part of DC? Like what is your favorite part of the
Mm.
city that you still enjoy or will enjoy once we get to kind of open back up?
I am really fortunate. I think I live like in my favorite part of the city. So I live about a mile north of the capital. I really like Howard. I visited the campus today and it is as beautiful as it ever was. And so that kind of 14th Street, U Street, Truxton Circle, all of that is my jam.
It's a beautiful area. So seeing that you've been in the city, you have your kind of favorite neighborhoods, do you have any advice or tips for new rattlers in the area or even rattlers that have been here for maybe a few years that are still kind of trying to get their footing? Because I know when I moved here, it took me quite a few years to kind of
Yeah.
stop getting speeding tickets and understand how to drive and where to park and even just navigating the social scene here took me a few years. So do you have any advice or suggestions?
I think I can give a couple bits of advice. One of the bits of advice I will give is that I think rattlers should separate out like what's happening in the DC social scene. I think you need real friends. And I think a lot of people in DC don't have real friends. And when
Oh,
I say real friends, I mean like you call a person and the conversation is not primarily about what you did at work. Real friends. Because DC is going to be a lot about, well, who do you work for and what do you do? And I think for some people, especially young people, if you don't have a fancy thing to tell somebody, you can start to be demoralized by the fact that people are not trying to talk to you after you tell them that you're a receptionist here or there.
right.
But don't be like beating yourself up about the fact that you're a receptionist because you're on the way to the next thing. And so I think it's just kind of hard to be young here for that reason. So try to center yourself with your real friends so that your DC friends don't stress you out would be one of the things I'd say. And then the other thing is like clearly, if you're watching this, you're on the right track. You should connect to other rattlers. We do a very good job of looking out for each other. And I don't think I think I just had like a breakthrough moment, excellence with caring. I always talk to my husband about how I think that we like care so much for each other and treat each other like family, and that that's not something that happens so much or as much at the other HBCUs.
Right.
And I think the best thing for a young person to do is just talk about what they want to do with other rattlers so that we can do what we will all automatically do, which is connect you to whoever we know that can help you with the thing.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I know I have been a member of the Alumni Association since I've moved up here on and off. And one thing I can say is there definitely is a family feel up here. I think I've even experienced some of the growing pains of being in a large chapter. I'm not sure of the exact numbers, but I know DC was the largest chapter for a few years.
Mm.
Now I think we're in competition with Atlanta, and we usually are within 10 or 15 members from each other. But being in a chapter that is so big and still has that kind of family feel is really important. So I think that's a awesome thing to remind people of that you have the
Yeah,
resource here. And if there's one thing I learned going to FAM is that your network is your net worth. So
yeah,
that is super, super important.
yeah. And I think sometimes I tell the students we use this language of networking, and I think sometimes it can be off-putting where a person feels like they have to, be doing a thing. But your network is like your homies. Who do your friends know? And who are your friends' friends, and how can you talk to them? And so I think there are many instances where we can just make it less daunting than it feels because it's stuff you already know. You already graduated from FAMU presumably and live here. And so you got the stuff half figured out. You just keep going down that road, and I think you'll be fine.
Awesome. Well, I think I just have a few more questions about your life at FAMU. So if we could take it back a little bit, and if you could just tell us the school you were in, the year that you came in, because I always get
Yeah,
confused. We like claim the year we came in and the year we graduate, which isn't the same for most. Um,
yeah.
and then maybe your favorite student recruitment moment.
Ooh, ooh. Um, I came to FAMU in 2001 as an African American Studies major, which I just found out the other day. I thought I came in as poli sci, but apparently I didn't. Um, and so I was in the College of Arts and Sciences. Which has a different name now that I
Oh,
don't know.
okay.
It's like the College of Social Sciences and Humanities, maybe. Um, I graduated in 2005 with my bachelor's. I went for the mass degree and got a mass in public administration in 2006. Student recruitment, oh, I
Your
don't even
favorite
know.
moment.
My favorite moment in student recruitment, I don't even know if I can identify one. It was such a huge part of my life at FAMU, given that I was in student government. And so from my sophomore year through graduation, I was on the road pretty much whenever I could be in the fall, every other weekend sometimes, from the time I again was a sophomore until I finished. And so there were so many moments that I don't even know that I can isolate one. They were just great and really great for doing the intergenerational stuff that I
Mhm.
think FAMU is really good at. And so you can be a sophomore and be BFFs with, a person who's in their first year of graduate school or a senior and all of that kind of thing that helps us have these really long connections that I don't know that other schools have.
I will say, one of my probably favorite recruitment moments, I don't know if I can narrow it down like you said, but I have to say that one of the things that I think stood out for me as I was learning to recruit under your advisement and under our student government kind of arm was um we used to have these little pep talks on the bus before we would go out to wherever we were going. And as a former theater kid, and even as somebody who used to work in the restaurants, like those little huddle moments, sometimes sports teams have them too, like just those moments to kind of get everyone in check and remind people of what we were doing were some of the best for me. And I remember one in particular, we were, I think, in Atlanta, and it was a moment where we were going, I think, to like a hospitality suite or something, and we
Mm.
were going to be engaging with older rattlers. And you just kind of gave us a very um firm but exciting kind of pep talk to let us know, like, hey, we're about to meet people, you guys are student leaders, make sure you carry yourself a certain way, but also acknowledge that this is the opportunity for your rattler network to grow. And you always kind of encouraged us to not only think about the students that we were recruiting into the university, but always connecting with our elders and some of the alumni who had already come and done amazing things as student recruiters or even leaders on campus. So that was definitely one of my favorites. Well, and we would also get our per diem on the bus. So
Yes, per diem was great.
after the little speech, we'd get our little uh, payment for recruiting, which we would have done for free anyway, but it was awesome.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah,
can
I gotta say, I think my favorite like FAMU travel moment is probably a SGA retreat. SGA retreats were like
oh my
all the things, and so I think the one that sticks out the most, we went to the Poconos, I think, and maybe we did recruitment. We did both, but we went to Philadelphia when we were D1 for that one semester, and went to the Poconos and got into all kinds of mess, and saw some things that some of us Florida kids had never seen before.
Oh, wow. That's amazing. Yeah, I
Yeah.
would say recruiting students and honestly, um, working, and I'm going to put that in air quotes because it always sounds so weird to refer to student recruitment as work, but doing that kind of work really does kind of anchor you into the foundation of FAM,
Yeah,
and remembering that we have to start with excellence with caring, and we have to start at the ground level with students and with those high school students that are still trying to figure it out. And as we get older and get to our different cities, joining an alumni association is a great way to strengthen that network, stay connected to some elders, and honestly have a good time, because
yeah,
I still have a great time with all Rattlers,
yeah,
period.
yeah. Especially, I especially enjoy going up to Morgan State. Like
Yes.
that's always a fantastic time. It's just always a fantastic time we get together.
Yes.
So
We missed that trip this year. And also
yeah.
usually when either the band comes up or the football team comes up and plays Howard, that's
Oh
usually
yes,
out.
always amazing. Yes,
And
we didn't even have the band this last time, and it was
it
fantastic.
was still fun. It was epic.
Yeah,
I don't even know if we won. I think
we
it
did
was,
not. We did not win.
well, we felt like we won.
Right.
And I know that was actually one of the biggest fundraisers for the Alumni Association. So it was a great, great way to kind of connect and get a little bit of Southern hospitality in the North.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, Keneshia, thank you so much for sitting and chatting with us. We don't want to take too much of your time, but we do want to kind of get to know our Spotlight honorees a little more intimately. So I really appreciate you taking time out in this busy, crazy week and season to talk to us.
I'm very happy to do it. Thank you so much, Ism.